have new kinds of families now, where husbands are interested in being fathers, engaged fathers, and moms are interested in being breadwinners. And more than breadwinners, perhaps leaders in their field. The biggest question is, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take the life that I have now, which is chock full, and add a family to this life? Getting to 50-50 is a means toward being able to have both work and family. I feel that economic concepts help people to focus the questions in a different way. It's kind of a mind shift. Instead of thinking about the usual gender and gendered ways of thinking, now you can think about economics and see how far that gets you. And although some people are put off by economics, this is a very valuable way to think about what they're trying to do. The first concept is utility maximization. You can think of utility as well-being. It might be better to say maximize well-being, and that may sound very instrumental, but in fact, we're all trying to maximize our utility, maximize our well-being, make decisions to the extent that we can that help us to be happy and help us have a rich life. And so we all grow up doing that for ourselves, and then suddenly we're married or partnered in some way, and now we have a much more complex situation because we love the person that we're partnered with, and so they and their well-being become part of our own utility function. So now I have three relationships: myself, my husband or partner, and my marriage that I want to think about. Then I have a child. Now it's even more complicated. I have to think about my child's well-being. So how do I make decisions that are going to be useful and sensible and provide contentment for all of those realms? You want to maximize well-being for yourself and the ones you love. And you want to make decisions about your career and about your family that in the end maximize well-being. And this is hard because it's not just about the well-being for today or next week. It's about long-term well-being as well. You have invested in yourself. You are human. You have put capital into yourself, and you want that investment in yourself to pay off. Economists call this human capital. When you undertake some sort of education or skill building, what you're doing is investing in your own human capital. The other concept economists talk about is depreciation of that human capital. If you don't use the education you have by staying in the workplace, then the skills and talents and networks that you have developed are definitely going to depreciate. I think people miscalculate. We tend to think about the here and now much more than we do about the near future, and certainly much more than we do about the distant future. Don't judge other people's decisions. Don't say, oh, I made the right decision. I went back to work, and my next door neighbor made the wrong decision. She stayed home. People make decisions for complex reasons. Maybe there's some reason why they need to leave the workforce, but maybe there's another reason why you need to stay. And try to make it work. It's not easy because our workforce has not been set up for parents. The usual way that I hear that people make the calculation: should I go back to work? I'm going to bring in a salary of X thousand dollars, but it's going to cost me Y thousand dollars to get childcare. I mean, here's my salary, and I have to pay almost as much for a childcare worker. So really the benefit I'm getting is pretty small, and then I have to pay taxes. So, you know, does it really pay for me to go out to work to earn only this much money? Yes, it does. Why? First of all, there's no reason why only the mother's salary should be the one to cover childcare. This is a family investment. You know, childcare is only for a few years. After that, your child goes to school, you may need some after-school childcare, and that investment in those few years when your child is young is so important for the future of your career. The second piece of this is that it's very valuable for your spouse, for the father of this child, to be competent and learn to enjoy childcare. And you know, all the research says that fathers who bond with their children early on have a very strong relationship with them. Back to utility maximization, that's one of the joys of life. To be a father who is competent and loved by his children in a very personal and direct way. Efficiency is getting more output with the same resources. So, you know, you can think about that easily in the work context. Many women have told me that they are, and fathers too, new fathers, their efficiency has increased enormously since they had a child, because now they make the rest of the workday far more efficient than they did before they had a child. And they learn to delegate more, which is often a good thing. You develop more people on your team. You can also learn how to be more efficient at home. And for most people, there's some room to grow in this respect. You can figure out how to be more efficient. But being efficient at home is a slippery slope because, you know, you don't want to be too efficient, particularly with young children. If you think about it, maybe you're cooking and you want to teach your 6-year-old something about cooking, so you engage your 6-year-old in cooking. This is not the most efficient strategy in the world. If you want to cook efficiently, you won't engage your 6-year-old. It's not just that you want to be efficient. You want your child to appreciate cooking. And so it might well be that you would decide, even though it's not so efficient, to get your 6-year-old involved in stirring the pot or whatever it is you want him to do. If you want to have work and family, we need to talk about the strategies for doing that. The best way that you can get started with a new mindset is to talk about it. Talk about it with your best friend. Start talking about this because we can't do this in isolation.
We're talking about partnership, we're talking about teamwork. These are skills that apply equally, whether you're a man or woman trying to pick the right partner, you're new parents, whether you're in a same-sex relationship or a heterosexual one. This is all about how do we stand in each other's shoes, how do we work together.
So when Sharon and I started working on our book, we started to look at those role models and find people who were doing this and were living lives that we wanted to live in very equal relationships. And we started talking to them, and what we found is the real key to those relationships was communication. Communicating a lot and honestly.
So what I'm wondering is, how do I actually bring this up in a non-awkward manner, especially, you know, do I bring this up on the first date? Is it that kind of conversation? Like, we're sitting there, a little wine, waiting for the breadsticks to come. Is that the moment? How is this not an awkward conversation And how, if it is, how do I sort of ease into it? Like, what is the exact words that I should use to make this happen?
Great question, Eva. I'm not sure it's the first thing I ever got to talk about on a date, but somewhere through the first glass of wine, it's kind of a fun thing to ask some questions. Be an anthropologist. Find out what is in the head of your date. I have never met a guy who didn't like talking about this stuff, who didn't like talking about how he grew up, what he thought of his parents, what kind of parent he wants to be, what he wants in his life. Just asking those questions, you learn a lot.
Let's say I'm on a date and it's going really, really well. We're getting to know each other really well. What are some of the things that I should watch out for? Like, what could some of the deal breakers be?
The guy who became my husband, when we first dated, I was really concerned because he said all sorts of things that sounded like red flags. And what I had to realize was it's very normal for people to just be on autopilot, to do what they think is normal unless they see there's a problem with it. And what we got from talking was figuring out that there might be a better way that we could both agree to. But there are markers you can look for, like, is he good at listening? Does he ask questions? Is he open to new ideas? Or is he kind of rigid? Those sorts of things are the kinds of characteristics you want in any partner, but certainly in a life partner. So we got some great advice starting out that we should have a weekly one-on-one, just like you do at work. Sounds really unromantic, but it turns out to be one of the greatest things we do in life, and it really brings us closer. So once a week, Sunday mornings, we get up and we cover everything from what's on the calendar to little things that either made us happy or bugged us. And you have to figure out, who has to travel on Wednesday? Who's got a business dinner? Do the kids have a sports game we need to go to? All that stuff needs to be there. The other thing, it's good on emotional stuff. Think about whether it really matters. If it does really matter, bring it up in your one-on-one and say, hey, is there a way we could change this? And 9 times out of 10, you'll find a way.
So it sounds like communication and support are really the keys.
So you've gotten past the dating stage, you find yourself in a nice relationship, and you feel like you're both pretty much on the same page about the important things. But one day, you get home from work, and there is a pile of dishes in the sink. And it seems as if he is expecting you to wash them. In that moment, you might feel a little less than happy. How do you resolve that without sounding like you're trying to start a big fight? It's just dishes, but there's no way I'm doing them.
Good. It's all about the art of the deal. It's all about saying, hey, don't know how these got there, but if you wash, I'll dry. Or, I had a really tough day at work, but if you want to give me a back rub, maybe I'll help you out.
The vast majority of mothers in this country work. So our goal is to help those people who are both working and taking care of kids, both men and women, to do this more successfully. And that's what really 50-50 is all about.
So I've been married for about 15 months and have a very full life with my husband. But we both work, and I'm out the door at 6:30, and I get back home at 7. And our life is just very packed. How do I fit any more into that life, including children?
I guess the truth is that life's not going to be the same. And unfortunately, a lot of other things will have to go. Give up on perfection. Realize that good is better than perfect. And it will give you a lot more happiness in your life if you focus on that, because perfection is stressful. So instead, try to think about doing things well enough. And that really is going to save you a lot of angst in your life.
Are there steps I can take to start preparing, laying the groundwork with work, not just at home?
One of my favorite parts of Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, is when she talks about don't leave until you leave, right? Don't start thinking that I need to be planning for kids, so I'm not taking my career seriously now.
I wish we could tell every 18-year-old girl, charge the hill, go as fast, as high as you possibly can in whatever field. Like, go after your dream and try to build as much professional credibility as possible. The more professional credibility you have at the moment you decide to have kids, the more power you have and the more confidence you have to negotiate. So maybe the one thing you really can be doing is back to learning to ask questions, even if they might seem uncomfortable at first, and learning to negotiate. Those are the two biggest things.
Asking questions of my coworkers, my boss?
All of the above.
Okay.
So one of the things that we talk about in getting to 50-50 is, ask your boss what really matters. Unless you capture on a piece of paper all the things you were asked to do and stop and say, are all 20 of these things important, or maybe just 2 or 3? And what are they? And how are we going to measure them? And go sit down with your manager and figure that out, because it is in the interest of your boss and your employer that you focus on those most important things. And if you get good at that before you have kids, you're on a roll.
That sounds so much less stressful.
I actually did that yesterday.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did it, and I was just, because I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions. And I said, let's talk through. I mean, what's really important? Because I know that you're going to measure me, and so I'm asked to do this by finance, this by marketing. Are these really my responsibilities? I don't feel that they are. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. And he's like, no, this is, and so it like in practice, it really works.
Think of your favorite working parent and go ask them questions. Ask them lots and lots of personal questions. The more we all do that, the more we'll all share great ideas that help us thrive both at work and at home.